here's one thing I'm really interested in. I'm really interested in people that are making huge impact on the face of this earth. So people that have these massive visions, people that are leading these big companies, people that have built huge personal brands and have a massive following. So I'm trying to find out how they did that. What is their thinking? Let's dive deep inside their mind. And so one person that I've always been very admired of or admire is Steve Jobs. So, and obviously, everybody, when you say Steve Jobs, you know that the thing that resonates with Steve Jobs is the company Apple, obviously. And of course, Steve Jobs is not here now, but even with Steve Jobs' limited number of shares in Apple, because he sold a lot of them way back when before he passed away, but even the ones that he retained, he would be the richest man in the world right now if he was still around. But his shares have been distributed through his family and through other shareholders and so on. So the cool thing with Steve Jobs is that he created this company, Apple, and he brought them back from near bankruptcy because of his vision. So I want to just share my screen because I made some notes here to talk about this, and I think this is really going to resonate with everybody because it identifies some characters or some characteristics of Steve Jobs that if we used as chiropractors, we would grow massive practices and massive followings. So the title of this talk is If Steve Jobs Were a Chiro. Well, and I'm not through this book totally, but this is the book Becoming Steve Jobs. And it really is, it identifies a lot of the transition of his life and how he thought, which is really fascinating. So one thing that Steve Jobs talked about, and this is going way back when he was just starting with Apple, was the power of the pitch. And his big thing was casting a big vision. And he had this idea back then when Apple was very, very small, because at that time, when computers started becoming mainstream and the public started using computers, it was all IBM. At that time, Apple, they made the Commodore 64. You may remember way back when some of those Apple computers, and people really wondered what they were. It was a advanced form of a calculator kind of thing. So, but he started casting this vision that he was going to take on IBM, and people called him crazy. They called him nuts. They said, how are you going to do that? But he became a great storyteller, and he really refined his skills to tell stories to get people into his world. So he created this vision. He enrolled people into this big vision that he was going to take over IBM. And he created what he calls the reality distortion field. In other words, he painted a picture of what we were currently versus what we could be. And it became this total wonderful thing that he could build with the help of everybody jumping onto his vision. And I love this idea when we apply it to chiropractic, is that we have something that's so unique that the world needs but knows nothing about, or the world has stereotyped us into this little mole or this little module of where we're put as little treaters of pain as a very small portion of the healthcare field. But we have something so much more than that. And that's what I learned from this power of the pitch. If we can cast this big vision, all of a sudden the profession starts to advance. And when people hear that, and I mean, I saw this in my own practice, and we hear this all the time from other chiropractors who start talking about the mission and the principle and the vision, that people start following them and they start building this army of people who just jump into this vision and becomes a real momentous type of thing. He develop these procedures for Apple. And you see it today. If anybody's ever been in an Apple store, it's a unique experience going into the Apple store. Just the way that it's laid out, the visual aspect of it, it looks completely different than any other store, whether it's an electronics store or any other retail store, it looks different. But the thing that they do with their employees is that they have this very, very regimented training routine, and every single Apple employee gets trained on a daily basis. So they show up to work 45 minutes early, and they have a 45-minute training before the store opens on the products, on some of the new features, on how to sell the products. And they actually have this training protocol that every single Apple employee gets daily. So they get this daily inspiration of the vision of the company of Apple. So it creates this energy And this energy amongst the Apple employees in the store becomes contagious, and thus their sales are incredibly good because they can talk about the products with this just enthusiasm that becomes contagious to the buyer. And that is an Apple procedure that was actually coined and started by Steve Jobs. They have strength in philosophy. So and this was Steve Jobs' word, and this is in the book. The world is made up of people that are no smarter than you. So realize that the potential that you have in this world is absolutely huge if you just take advantage of it. So he also says that the entrepreneur's job, so in other words, as chiropractors, our job is to make a dent in the universe. Our job is to really see the world differently than the way it is and start to change the paradigm of common thinking. And if you look at it, we live in this world, especially in North America, we live in this world where people have bought into this medical rhetoric and medical model that we're not strong enough to take care of ourselves. And we need all of these things. And we get inundated with this pharmaceutical nonsense on a daily basis. You see the ads everywhere, whether it's on social media or television, about the next medication and why you should take it. And the fact that Big Pharma now advertises to the consumer to then go and put pressure on your medical doctor to prescribe a prescription medication for you. So they're really driving the industry by their marketing. So it's just asinine when you think about it that a controlled substance like a prescription drug can be you know marketed to the consumer, and they go put pressure on their doctor, and then they've gone and incentivized the doctors to say, if you prescribe more of this medication, you're going to get all these bonuses. They've built this marketing machine that drives this pharmaceutical thinking, and they've completely brainwashed the public into thinking that this is normal. So our job as chiropractors, and as Steve Jobs says, the job of the entrepreneur is to change the paradigm of common thinking. And he said one of his quotes was, computers are a bicycle for the mind. So I would take that and say, chiropractic is a jet plane for human potential. And if we can adapt this thinking that what we do, we maximize and optimize the opportunity for people to express their full life potential. We optimize that. And that's why everybody needs to know the chiropractic paradigm. Everybody needs to know the principle of chiropractic. Whether they decide to get care, that's up to them. That's a privilege. I always said knowing the chiropractic principle is a right, but getting chiropractic care is a privilege. And one thing Steve Jobs did was he became excellent. He was a good storyteller, but he became excellent at using analogies. So start to figure out where you can use analogies to help people relate to what it is you do so they can buy into this paradigm. Steve Jobs came up with think different, be the square peg in a round hole. He was one to go against the grain. He was one to go against the common thinking. And people bought into his philosophy over the poor products. And at the time, as I mentioned earlier, he brought Apple back from near bankruptcy because of his vision, because of his philosophy. So he wasn't focused on the products, he was focused on what the company could be. And I would say that your practice success is directly proportional to your ability to cast a vision. If you look at all of the chiropractors you know who have had great success in practice, and whatever you define as success, whether that's seeing a lot of people or whether that's getting great results or whether that's uh, making a lot of money, whatever that is defined by you, I would say the common ground there is that all of those chiropractors that have had great success in practice have an incredible ability to cast a vision. In fact, I would say that their ability to cast a vision and communicate that vision to people far exceeds their ability to adjust or manually take care of people. You can have the worst adjuster and the worst chiropractor, but if that terrible chiropractor from a mechanistic standpoint or an adjustment technique standpoint has an ability to communicate and move people and get people to follow them into that vision, they're going to be incredibly successful. And on the other hand, you can have a person who's maybe the best diagnostician or the best assessor of subluxation or the best adjuster or the person that's the best at that technique. And if they can't communicate and if they can't market themselves, they have a terrible practice. They have a very slow practice because nobody has bought into that vision. So what Steve Jobs did is he became obsessed over the products. So one thing he did, and this is really cool about Apple, is that they've become a product ecosystem. And if you're an Apple user, many people that become Apple users then look for other products as Apple products because everything is integrated. So you may go get an iPhone, and the next thing you know, you're buying a Mac laptop, and the next thing you know, you're buying an iPad, and now you're using iTunes. And now you're subscribed to Apple Music or whatever the case is. But he has created this product ecosystem, and it actually started with the iPod. That was his vision, and then he started working on, and he actually minimized a lot of the products that they had in the plan to say we're going to work on laptops, and we're going to make a pro laptop and a consumer laptop. We're going to make a desktop, a pro desktop, and a consumer desktop. And he said, then we're going to start iTunes, which was really the dawn of digital music. And it was really cool because he created this product ecosystem. And now the ecosystem, and you guys know, it all feeds on each other. And the reason why I bring this up, and I love this, because you have the opportunity in your office to create a product ecosystem. And this is really interesting when you think about this. Think about this. If you were, let's say, you had a running shoe store, for example, and you sold running shoes, and you had customers coming in that wanted to run their first marathon, and you helped them understand what they needed as far as their shoes go, and maybe you analyzed their gait, and they were a supinator, a pronator, they were a forefoot striker, a midfoot, a hindfoot striker, whatever it is, and you got them fit in the most appropriate pair of shoes, and that's what you sold them. But realize people that are going to run a marathon, they might need running shorts. They might need a tank top. They might need one of those armbands for their iPhone to hold on their arm. Maybe they need some earbuds because they're going to listen to music as they run their marathon. Maybe they need those gel packs, or maybe they need one of those, we used to call them the buffet belt, where they'd have those little bottles of water or bottles of Gatorade or whatever they carried in those belts that they would put around their waist. So there wasn't just the shoes, there was an ecosystem around the shoes for people that ran a marathon. But if you just sold shoes and ignored those other products, people would just go buy them from somewhere else. So here's the interesting thing is that we as chiropractors have an opportunity to build an ecosystem amongst what we do. And if we can share the principle with people, and this is the cool thing is that some of you might sell nutritional products in your office. Some of you might sell some home care kits to support what you do. But what that is doing, it's building an ecosystem. So you have this opportunity to really expand this ecosystem in your office. And if it's done properly, you become the place that people want to go. Because if they're not getting their nutritional supplements from you, they're going to get them somewhere else. Or if they're not getting their nutritional consultation from you, they're going to get them somewhere else. So that's what I would say to you is look at the mission, look at the vision and the message that you're trying to relay to people, and start to build an ecosystem that supports that. And so, for those of you who are doing any type of corrective care or any type of objective measurements on people, but you're not getting them the products to help support the correction, whether it be some neurological correction or whether it be some structural correction, if they're not doing any type of home care, then you're really missing out on building that ecosystem in your office. So, figure out how to fit that in. And it doesn't mean you have to do it. It means you train your team and inspire your team to be part of that vision and part of that mission. So build that product ecosystem. One thing Steve Jobs did was he built this incredible personal brand. So he crafted his own personal story, and he was very selective at the places he showed up in public. Steve Jobs was actually, and according to his memoirs and the book, he was actually a bit of an introvert and a little bit of a quirky, kind of cantankerous guy. So he had to be very strategic in the places where he put himself and where he was seen in the public because he wanted his personal brand 100% to represent Apple. So he became the face of Apple. In fact, when people looked at Steve Jobs, you would think Apple. It was really associated. So you look at some of the other people in history who have done this. Well, you look at way back when, I'm going back in the, before 2000, Chrysler was near bankruptcy. And if you recall, they hired a guy named Lee Iacocca. And Lee Iacocca became the face of Chrysler. And his personal brand totally transformed Chrysler around. In fact, his visionary idea was to create the Caravan, which was the dawn of the minivans. So Chrysler was really the founder, the pioneer of the minivan era when they built the Dodge Caravan. And that was coined or visioned by Lee Iacocca. You look at the companies of Tesla, PayPal, or Starlink, well, automatically everybody knows that's an Elon Musk thing. So Elon Musk actually has more followers than Tesla, PayPal, and Starlink because people follow him. So many people will buy the brands, buy Tesla or buy Starlink or get involved with PayPal because it's associated with Elon. So his personal brand has driven those companies. When you think of Virgin, Virgin Records, Virgin Mobile, Virgin Cruise Lines, you think of Richard Branson. Well, again, Richard Branson has something like 13 million followers, and Virgin has about 3 million followers. So it's these people that have built these personal brands. And so this is why I bring this up, is because this is huge in chiropractic. Many people will come to see you because of who you are, not what you do. So getting yourself out there and being part of something, like being standing for something or standing against something, people will buy into your vision. People will become part of your tribe just because of who you are and therefore want to be in your presence. So don't be afraid to get off the fence. And this is one thing that I really like talking about a lot, is getting off of the fence. One thing that Steve Jobs talked about was the art of partnership. He was really good at this, and he partnered with the music industry to create really the digital music era. And with the dawn of iTunes, digital music was really pioneered by Steve Jobs. He partnered with a company called Pixar to recreate animation. And of course, you've all seen many, many Pixar movies. Well, that was a lot of it was visionary by the partnership with Steve Jobs. And he strategically partnered with the public. And the thing is, that's what he was really good at, was getting the public involved so they felt like they had some sort of say in the direction of where Apple was going. And a lot of the Apple products were envisioned by the partnerships with the general public. He really understood where people wanted this to go, and that helped shape the style and the functionality of a lot of the products that Apple makes. So, how does this work in chiropractic? When you put all these things together, and I want to kind of just summarize this up, is that the big thing, you guys, to really make an impact in people. So I would say, ask yourself why you're in this profession. You know, are you in this profession just to help people get out of pain? Are you in this profession just to make some money? Are you in this profession just to build your practice, or maybe just to work in somebody else's practice? But I would say bottom line is that no matter where you are, build this crazy vision, because if people don't think you're a radical, it's not crazy enough. And I'm going to tell you, there were many times through the years that I got caught up in trying to share this vision, whether it was throwing stones at the medical community and some of the crazy things that happened with medicine, or whether it was really pushing the philosophy of chiropractic. And in many cases, I had a lot of stones thrown at me. But one thing I did is I really resounded myself to say that that's okay. I don't mind. I embraced it actually, because I knew if I was getting stones thrown at me or getting the negative comments, I knew it was making an impact. I knew I was off the fence, and I was really trying to create this tribe of people that follow, and it worked. And I mean, we grew a fantastic practice as a result of that. So become a good storyteller. Create this reality distortion field. Talk about what things could be. I've always had these visions, and I talk about this often, is that, and this is something too, when you think about this, is that we're in an age now, here we are in 2025. We are 80 years past the end of World War II. So between 1945 and 1955 were the baby boomer years. So a lot of people that were born between 1945 and 1955 are now reaching the ages of 70 to 80 years old. Okay. And when you think about this, many of those people are now requiring assisted living. So retirement homes, nursing homes, and so on. There's a huge movement. And this is the thing, and I can tell you this directly because many of those people, because of the economic state of the world, need financial help from their families to be cared for. You know, unless their family's going to take them in and care for them personally, many people can't do that. So they get into a retirement home, and you're looking at least $3,000 to $4,000 a month in some sort of a retirement home. But retirement homes have a very, very much of a medical philosophy. But there's a huge need and a huge desire right now for retirement homes to think the way that we think. to not push medications and whether they're injected or whether they're ingested all the time to their residents, to have some good organic food that's not processed, that's not high in carbohydrates, to have some, the ability to have some good meals, to have a nutritional person on staff to consult these people rather than a medical doctor on staff just writing prescriptions all the time, to have some sort of an exercise program or a fitness or strengthening program for these people. And that vision, I have this vision that is a huge opportunity to get into starting to transform some of these retirement homes into this type of model. Huge. And I think there's a huge market for that. There's a huge market for having chiropractors or somebody that thinks the way that we do in birthing centers to work alongside midwives to be able to check babies as they're born, before they're wiped off, before the cord is cut, to check them for subluxation, to get them adjusted right off the bat, to consult with the parents, to adjust mom through their labor, to adjust dad because he's all stressed out. There's a huge need for these things to happen. We all do it with our own families during these times. Wouldn't it be incredible if it was available for everybody at those times? So become a great storyteller, create in your office the Apple system of training. And I can't express this enough, is that you can't spend enough time with your team pouring into them, talking to them about the mission of what you do, talking to them about the fact that people are sick and dying and need our help. I mean, there's a world out there that needs our help, and we have this opportunity to serve people. As stressful as it gets inside the office, we still have this ability to really change our community and change the lives of people in our community. So create the system of training. Make sure that you're pouring into your team on a daily basis, not just once a week, not just, occasionally when you feel like it, on a daily basis. Set your training times up in your office so that your team becomes extremely efficient and good at what they do. Share your philosophy everywhere. We have this wonderful philosophy. Don't be afraid to share it. Get off the fence. Create your product ecosystem. If you're just selling chiropractic, which is giving adjustments, I mean, obviously that's our number one product, but there's a lot of things that will help support that. So create that product ecosystem. It'll be beneficial for the patients, but it's also going to be beneficial for your team and for you, and obviously for your bank account.
A couple of things I'll just throw in on that call is looking back when I was at probably some of my highest volumes, the difference in volume also resonated when I was the most vocal about what I saw wrong in the world and where our office stood in opposition or provided a solution to that. Patients gravitate to that. Patients want to get to your workshops on that. Patients want to send their friends to that. It's something exciting because majority of the people in your office have similar worldly views, but they need someone to follow because they are likely not going to voice it the same way you will. The second piece on that product ecosystem, this is so much more than just a way to create revenue. So whether it's home care, whether it's vitamins, whether it's teach them how to do max T3 or, eat a certain way, this is also like, it's the only way to give patients accountability for their actions as well. Anything that is passive at some point is going to fall off because there is no personal responsibility involved. So if there's home care exercises that they need to be doing every day, when they get engaged in that, their commitment to the care is bigger. And every day they do that, they're thinking about you or the doc or the team that prescribe that. If they're taking supplements that are going to benefit them every time they take that thing out of the cupboard, they're thinking about you. If it's like, hey, I'm doing this Max T3 workout now 3 times a week, it's like, Dr. Blaine taught me how to do this. If it's, name it, like I eat a certain way, I avoid the toxicity list, like whatever. It's like, this is where I learned it. This is where I engaged in it. They're thinking about that and they become engaged in their care. So they're an active participant versus a passive person who at some point, if they're passive, it's going to fall off.
And your office is a reflection of your personal brand. So really take a stand of who you are and what you're trying to deliver. Don't be afraid to share that. Don't be afraid to have people throw stones at you if you want to take a stance on something. That's okay. It means you're really starting to create some ripples and create some waves, and partner with everybody you can. I mean, there's companies and support groups and sporting teams, and there's so many people that would love your help and your knowledge and your guidance. Go talk to them and ask how you can help. And when you start doing these things, you get this Apple vision. You start to become who Steve Jobs was and get the results that he was getting. So if you're at a place in your practice where you feel like you're just not growing or you're spinning your wheels, just start making some changes, and these things will start to fall into place. I hope this helps you guys. I hope you can take some of these points and put them into your life and into your practice right away just to get some better results.
Hey, if you've enjoyed this video, I would ask if you don't mind, go ahead and subscribe and hit a like on there or leave a comment. We'll respond to all the comments. We love what we do, and if the message that you got through this video resonates with you and you want to take your practice to the next level, you want to open up your mindset into a different thinking of chiropractic care, if you want to implement some systems into your office or train your team so that you can adapt and see more people and build a bigger practice, or if you're interested in marketing for your practice and getting your message, your unique and specific message out there to your community, there's a link down below. You can click the link. You can set up a call with me, or we can just arrange a time to do a Zoom meeting and just find out what your goals are. Be happy to talk to you and just happy to provide some direction and give you some suggestions. And if you want to take it to the next step and learn what it takes to get some coaching or get some marketing done for your office, happy to talk about that too. Have a good one.